Start by shutting the gas off to the tank. Just follow the gas line up. It's usually up towards the top of the tank. This one's up closer to the ceiling. This one has a ball valve. Just turn that across the pipe there, left to right. That's off. Up and down is on. That's a ball valve. Same with the water. If it's in line, it's on. If it's across the pipe, it's off. And that's only for a ball valve. So if you don't have any shutoffs, just shut it off where the main water comes into your house. There should be a shutoff by the meter somewhere in front, behind, or both. I'm going to eventually have to shut this off. I'm going to leave it on for now just because I got people using toilets and showers upstairs still. And while we're doing that, get this thing draining. I got a hose hooked to it. This one has a flat screwdriver, lefty loosey. We'll loosen that all the way up and let it start draining. It's more like half of a garden hose, but this is what I use it for. Run it over to the floor drain, and it's going to take a while for this thing to drain, so we'll just keep unhooking things while it's draining. The old tank, the pressure relief valve didn't have a pipe on it. It should have a pipe from there down to the floor. We'll make sure the new one gets a pipe on it. And then this thing's been draining long enough, and the water's off. So I'm going to open this pressure relief valve and let some air in there. It'll help it drain a little faster. Having the hot water of a faucet or two open to let some air in the line will help it drain faster too. And then on top, we can start unhooking this stuff. The vent, this cover, there should be one or two screws. This one has one holding it to the tank. So get that out and then pull the a chunk of vent pipe off. I'm going to take it back there, just get it out of the way. Just be careful it's not still hot. Those pipes get really hot. And then just set the screws in the pipe aside. You can reuse that stuff. And then the gas line, that big nut there, that's where the gas line comes apart. We'll get that off here in a minute. I'm going to show you some of the pieces, parts I got for this thing. A drain pan. It's like a safety pan in case it springs a leak. Comes with a plug. I got some fittings and some pipe to run it over to the floor drain, and then just basic tools, something to cut the plastic pipe with. Channel locks, pipe wrench, screwdrivers, that kind of stuff. Just basic hand tools, something to cut the copper with, pipe cutter, and then some cleaner and glue for the PVC. Soapy solution for the joints on the gas line. There's some dope for the pipe dope for the threaded gas line fittings. This supply lines, one end goes on the tank. This end is a shark bite with a ball valve. It's all one piece. Actually kind of nice to do that all at one shot. The new tank, I got it out. I'm just checking some measurements here, and the new valve is about 2.5, 3 inches ish taller than the old one. So I'm gonna take all this apart and reuse probably most of it. Might have to get a nipple or two. I think one needs to be longer, one needs to be shorter. That drip leg needs to be a little bit longer. I don't think it's a big deal, but we'll get this all taken apart here in a little bit. This new shutoff for this side, just a little bit short. Bummer. So I actually had to, I ran up to the supply house. I got a longer hose and a ball valve. I'm just going to have to make my own. No big deal. They didn't have one that was one piece that was long enough. So the gas line, where that comes apart there, the gas line wasn't fastened up towards the ceiling. There was no straps or anything on it, so it kind of fell down to the side. So I just kind of tied it up with a piece of wire for now, and then once we get the new one hooked up, make sure that gets strapped off good so it's not just hanging there. I let some of the cold water back into the tank. The water's off to the house, so I just let some of that residual water run into the tank, and we'll just let it drain through that hose before I cut this off. And then, just trying to keep the mess to a minimum. The other side, I like having shutoffs on both sides in case you ever have to work on it. But this side's okay. Just don't cut them too short. Leave yourself some slack. You got a flexible hose there in case you got to move the tank a little bit one way or the other. The new tank, there's plugs in the in and out of the tank. Make sure you get those plugs out of there. It's just a shipping plug. Keep crap out of there. Make sure you get those out, or you're not going to have any water. I just made a short little piece of pipe to go between the ball valve and the hose there, just to hook those two together, and then got those put on. Shark bites just push on, like I said, leaving some slack there. I got the water turned back on in the house while I work on some of this other stuff. They just won't have hot water for a few minutes yet. So lining up this pipe, this drain, so it's I want to run it along that bottom plate there over to that floor drain that's right there. So just trying to line everything up and taking my time here. This thing's still draining, so I'm going to take all these fittings off with a pipe wrench, get all these gas line fittings off, and we can start putting the other side back together. I just loosely hand tightened my pieces parts back together on the new tank and got everything lined up so it's nice and straight and all that stuff. And then I'll pull it apart and put some pipe dope on all the fittings and crank them down. I do the gas line first just because it's rigid. You don't want any water in the tank just yet. So the pressure relief valve hose, I just flip it upside down and made a mark and chopped it off. I just want to make sure that pipe ends up down into that pan. So after that, we'll get this vent stuff hooked up. This new one has 2 holes in it. You can see there's 4 legs. So 2 of them have 2 holes. So just make sure you get the screw holes lined up and make sure the other legs get where they need to go. I got my water lines hooked up and snugged up tight, and get that screwed down, and then you can screw your vent pipe back on. And I use this aluminum duct tape on all the joints after I screwed them together. Just a little extra protection for leakage and whatnot. So, excuse me. I got the floor drain pipe all glued and put in there. Got the tank filled with water. Make sure you fill it with water all the way before you go trying to light this thing, or you'll ruin it if you don't. So pull the cover off, and that little piece of insulation, there's a little window. You got to get down there so you can see. And then you put this on pilot, push the button in, and that'll gas will go in there, and then it's got a little like grill lighter, a little spark thing. It just sparks in there until it lights. Once you get the pilot lit, I'm going to go around and soak all these joints real good with this soapy solution. And if there's any leaks, it's going to make bubbles. So just watch for bubbles for a minute or so and soak it real good. Don't be afraid to get this thing all messy and goopy with soap. Make sure it's not leaking. And then when you're sure it's not leaking, you can wipe it all down. And that's it. So put the cover back on and fire this thing up. Turn the temperature up to, I just put it on hot. There's hotter temperatures, but homeowner can adjust it. That's hot on these new tanks is pretty hot. So I'll double check for leaks on the gas line after this thing's running for a little bit. And, while the fire's burning, there's a lot of gas going through there. I'll check for leaks again. But all in all, pretty good project. So good luck.